Alright, hi guys, and I'm back. We're going to do Little House now. I'm sorry it's so much later in the day before this got posted, but a little trouble with storage space. So I had to get rid of a bunch of things off the camera roll storage space so I could take more videos. So, we're going to do Chapter 6, which is called Moving In. So make sure that you have your vocab sheet that you've been working on. We did this side. Now we're going to do the second side at the top. Week 2, and we're going to do reprovingly. Reprovingly is the vocab word we're going to focus on in our chapter. The other thing you need besides your book and your vocab sheet is your new trifold. And this will be for chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. 10 and 11 and 12. You notice we have several chapters that are grouped together in this part of the book, shorter chapters that go together. Some very exciting things in this second trifold that happened to the Ingalls family. We're going to focus on context clues today. So not only are we going to look for reprovingly, and work on figuring out what that word means in the chapter together, you will then do more practice with that on your own. One of the words, reprovingly, will be done because we'll do it together. And you're supposed to put, I think this means because. So, stable. I think this means because it said this in the book. Okay, and we'll do that with reprovingly, so you have that as an example. All right, so chapter 6, moving in. Before we had our vacation, we had left off with chapter 5 when they were building the house, and Ma got hurt, and she couldn't help anymore, and then Pa met their neighbor, Mr. Edwards, in the woods, and he came over and helped them build their house, all the walls up in the skeleton roof, and they cut a hole for the door and 2 holes for the windows. Because Mr. Ingalls was, Mr. Edwards, was a bachelor, and said that it would be easier for him to go without a house than it would be for Ma and the 2 girls. So, we're going to read, now they're ready to move in. Remember, a skeleton roof, we'll see what it looks like. It's just the rafters as we read, and we'll see what they do in the meantime. They also don't have a fireplace or floors or any furniture, and they have to go to the creek for the well, but eventually Paul will get all of that done. I know the next thing he wants to build, he tells us, is a stable, is they keep hearing wolves. So, chapter 6, moving in, page 71. Everybody have their book ready to go. The walls are up, Pa was saying to Ma in the morning. We better move in and get along as best we can without a floor or other fixtures. Fixings. Which is furniture. I must build the stable as fast as I can so Pet and Patty can be inside walls, too. Last night I could hear wolves howling from every direction, seemed like, and close, too. Well, you have your gun, so I'll not worry, said Ma. Yes, and there's Jack, but I'll feel easier in my mind when you and the girls have good solid walls around you. Why do you suppose we haven't seen any Indians? Ma asked. Oh, I don't know, Pa replied, carelessly. Sorry. I've seen their camping places among the bluffs. They're away on a hunting trip now, I guess. Then Ma called, Girls, the sun's up, and Laura and Mary scrambled out of bed and into their clothes. Eat your breakfast quickly, Ma said, putting the last of the rabbit stew on their tin plates. We're moving into the house today, and all the chips must be out. So, pioneer people ate whatever they had, pretty much. So, leftovers for breakfast, leftovers for lunch, made big meals at one time, and then ate what was left for a long time. And chips, what are they picking up? Well, when you are making logs fit together, and you have to use your hatchet or your axe very carefully to chip and make sure that they fit one on the other because you're making notches. You're going to have lots of little pieces of wood that fly off. and they want to get those all picked up from inside. You wouldn't want to walk on those in your bare feet. So they ate quickly and hurried to carry all the chips out of the house. They ran back and forth as fast as they could, gathering their skirts full of chips and dumping them in a pile near the fire. But there were still chips on the ground inside the house when Mom began to sweep it with her willow bough broom. Ma limped, though her sprained ankle was beginning to get well. But she soon swept the earthen floor, and then Ma and Laura began to help her carry things into the house. Pa was on top of the walls, stretching the canvas wagon top over the skeleton roof of saplings. And there you can see what the rafters look like. And then the big white cloth is going to be the roof for now, which would be okay in the summer, but they definitely would want a regular roof before fall and winter. The canvas billowed in the wind. Pa's beard blew wildly, and his hair stood up from his head as if it were trying to pull itself out. He held on to the canvas and fought it. Once it jerked so hard that Laura thought he must let go or sail into the air like a bird. But he held tight to the wall with his legs and tight to the canvas with his hands, and he tied it down. There, he said to it. Stay where you are and be. Charles, Ma said. She stood with her arms full of quilts and looked up at him reprovingly. Think about that word. We were looking for that. How is she using it? And be good, Pa said to the canvas. Why, Caroline, what did you think I was going to say? Oh, Charles, Ma said, you scalawag. Pa came right down the corner of the house. The ends of the logs stuck out, and he used them for a ladder. He ran his hand through his hair so that it stood up even more wildly, and Ma burst out laughing. Then he hugged her, quilts and all. Then they looked at the house, and Pa said, How's that for a snug house? I'll be thankful to get into it, said Ma. There was no door, and there were no windows. There was no floor except the ground, and no roof except the canvas. But that house had good stout walls, and it would stay where it was. It was not like the wagon that every morning went on to some other place. We're going to do well here, Caroline, Pa said. This is a great country. This is a country I'll be contented to stay in the rest of my life. Even when it's all settled up? Ma asked. Even when it's settled up. No matter how thick and close the neighbors get, this country'll never feel crowded. Look at that sky. Laura knew what he meant. She liked this place too. She liked the enormous sky and the winds and the land that you couldn't see to the end of. Everything was so free and big and splendid. By dinner time, the house was in order. The beds were neatly made on the floor. The wagon seat and two ends of logs were brought in for chairs. Pa's gun lay on its pegs above the doorway. Boxes and bundles were neat against the walls. It was a pleasant house. A soft light came through the canvas roof. Wind and sunshine came through the window holes, and every crack in the four walls glowed a little because the sun was overhead. Only the campfire stayed where it had been. Pa said he would build a fireplace in the house as soon as he could. He would hew out slabs to make a solid roof, too, before the winter came. He would lay a punch-in floor, we'll learn what that is when he makes it, and make beds and tables and chairs. But all that work must wait until he helped Mr. Edwards and had built a stable for Pet and Patty. When that's all done, said Ma, I want a clothesline. Pa laughed, yes, and I want a well. After dinner, he hitched Pet and Patty to the wagon, and he hauled a tub full of water from the creek so that Ma could do the washing. You could wash clothes in the creek, he told her. Indian women do. If we wanted to live like Indians, you could make a hole in the roof to let the smoke out, and we'd have the fire on the floor inside the house, said Ma. Indians do. That afternoon, she washed the clothes in the tub and spread them on the grass to dry. After supper, they sat for a while by the campfire. That night they would sleep in the house. They would never sleep beside a campfire again. Pa and Ma talked about the folks in Wisconsin, and Ma wished she could send them a letter. But Independence was 40 miles away, and no letter could go until Pa made the long trip to the post office there. Back in the big woods, so far away, Grandpa and Grandma and the aunts and uncles and cousins did not know where Pa and Ma and Laura and Mary and baby Carrie were. And sitting there by the campfire, no one knew what might have happened in the big woods. There was no way to find out. Can you imagine? Our world is just so different from that. We know in an instant what's going on, and they didn't know for months or years. Well, it's bedtime, Ma said. Baby Carrie was already asleep. Ma carried her into the house and undressed her, while Mary unbuttoned Laura's dress and petticoat waist down the back, and Pa hung a quilt over the door hole. The quilt would be better than no door. Then Pa went out to bring Pet and Patty close to the house. He called back softly, "Come out here, Caroline, and look at the moon." Mary and Laura lay in their little bed on the ground inside the new house and watched the sky through the window hole to the east. The edge of the big, bright moon glittered at the bottom of the window space, and Laura sat up. She looked at the great moon sailing silently higher in the clear sky. Its light made silvery lines in all the cracks on that side of the house. The light poured through the window holes and made a square of soft radiance on the floor. It was so bright that Laura saw Ma plainly when she lifted the quilt at the door and came in. Then Laura very quickly lay down before Ma saw her naughtily sitting up in the bed. She heard Pet and Patty whinnying softly to Pa. Then the faint thuds of their feet came into her ear from the floor. Pet and Patty and Pa were coming toward the house, and Laura heard Pa singing, "Sail on, silver moon, shed your radiance over the sky." His voice was like a part of the night and the moonlight and the stillness of the prairie. He came to the doorway singing, "By the pale silver light of the moon." Softly Ma said, "Hush, Charles, you'll wake the children." So Pa came in without a sound. Jack followed at his heels and lay down across the doorway. Now they were all inside the stout walls of their new home, and they were snug and safe. Drowsily, Laura heard a long wolf howl rising from far away on the prairie, but only a little shiver went up her backbone, and she fell asleep. Oh my, tomorrow's chapter is called The Wolf Pack, and it's going to be an exciting chapter. All right, so, whoops, I shouldn't have put my book over there. So we're looking for the word reprove or reprovingly. In our chapter, it's used as reprovingly, not as reprove. And that's back when Pa is putting the canvas on top of the roof. And he says, "There," he said to it, "you stay where you are and be." "Charles," Ma said. She stood with her arms full of quilts and looked up at him reprovingly. "And be good," Pa said to the canvas. "Why, Caroline, what did you think I was going to say?" All right. So, I don't know about you, but that sounds like one of those times where he was angry. We get angry at things when they aren't doing what we want them to do and they're not working for us. And sometimes even grown-ups don't use the best language in the world because they're frustrated. And that's what Pa was doing. He was frustrated. The wind was blowing. He couldn't get that canvas to be nailed down or very well. And he was talking to it and saying, probably was going to say some bad words. And Ma came along and she stopped him. She's like, "Oh, nope, nope. What are you going to say? Our children are around. They shouldn't hear words like that," is what she was saying in her words when she said, "Oh, Charles." And he knew exactly what she meant. So, reprove or reprovingly is either a look or it's something that someone says and they are scolding. you for doing something you probably shouldn't be doing. So I'm going to write on my board, and then you can copy it on your um, vocab sheet. Remember, you're going to write it on the back behind reprove. You're going to write down what I'm writing down. It means a look or words that scold someone. Remember, scold means to say, hey, stop what you're doing. You're not doing what's right. All right, a look or words that scold someone. And if you are not done, you want to pause the video, finish copying, and start it back up again. But I'm going to go on. And I'm going to erase what I just wrote, but I'm going to leave the word reprovingly at the top, because now we're going to get our trifold out. There we go. Boy, my marker is not working. Not writing very nicely. There, that's a little bit better, but still not very good. We're going to get our trifold out, and we're going to go to chapter 6. And where it says chapter 6, you have 4 words that were used in the chapter: stable, reprovingly, radiance, and drowsily. We're going to do reprovingly together because we just learned what the definition is. So I'm going to model how to write it in the box, and then you'll follow the same formula. For the other 3 words, you'll look those up on your own in the chapter and write down, I think it means blank because. So, reprovingly, we said, I think it means to scold someone because, okay, I think it means to scold someone because Ma was scolding Pa for his language. All right, so you need to write that down in the box. So you're putting, I think it means, and then you put the definition. So if I were doing the stable, I think it means a place for animals to live because, and then think about what your example was in the chapter. Why did Pa need to build a stable? Who was going to live in the stable? In this case, I think it means to scold someone because Ma was scolding Pa for his language. All right, and if you are not done copying that, pause the video and finish copying it before you go on. So your response to this, so I know that you did it, is to finish the other 3. And then I'm going to have you read your definitions for stable, drowsily, and radiance to me on your seesaw response. And they should all start with, I think it means blank because. So I want to hear what was your reasoning for why you thought it meant that. All right. I'll see you tomorrow for chapter 7, all about wolves.